I wasn't supposed to come home that early. The party was still in full swing when I left. Some coworker of mine, Matt, I think, was celebrating a promotion he probably didn't deserve. Everyone was crowding around the bar, laughing louder than necessary, tossing back drinks like we were all still in college. It was one of those nights where everything looked right on the surface, but deep down, I felt detached. Like I was watching a version of my life playing out in front of me without actually being in it. I told people I had a headache. They gave me that half-sympathetic nod that meant, "Sure, man, whatever you say," and turned back to their conversations. But the truth is, I didn't have a headache. I wasn't tired. I wasn't bored. I just had a gut feeling. It's weird how that happens. How your body knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Like an invisible thread pulling you away from a room full of people and back to a quiet hallway you weren't supposed to be in. That's where I ended up. Back at our apartment. At 9:46 p.m. on a Saturday. I didn't even make noise coming in. The door latch clicked quietly behind me, and everything felt still. Our place wasn't dark, but it wasn't lit up either. Just a soft glow spilling out from under the bedroom door. No TV sounds. No music. Just silence and something faint. A voice. Her voice. At first, I couldn't tell if she was on the phone or talking to someone in the room. My chest tightened instinctively. I moved down the hallway slowly, not because I was trying to sneak, but because something in the way she was speaking made me hesitate. I wasn't ready to know why. This time was even better. "You really know what you're doing." That's when my breath caught. There was a lightness in her voice. Almost a giggle, but not quite. Mate. Confident. Familiar in a way that didn't feel like it belonged to me anymore. I froze, 5 feet from our bedroom door, heart pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it. My brain scrambled for explanations. Was she reading something out loud? Was she on a Zoom book club? Was it a scene from a movie? But even as the questions came, I already knew the answer. You know it when you hear it, that shift in someone's voice when they're performing for someone else. When they're not being themselves, but being the version they want to be seen as. XY. Mysterious. Desired. Not the version I'd seen for months now. Tired. Distracted. Distant. I stepped forward, slow and silent. The bedroom door was cracked an inch. Just enough for me to see her sitting on the edge of the bed, legs crossed, phone in hand. Her face was half lit by the glow of the screen. She looked relaxed, too relaxed. Then she saw me. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. She flinched just for a second. But it was enough. That micro-expression, that flicker of panic, told me everything I needed to know before she even opened her mouth. She locked her screen so fast you'd think she was defusing a bomb. Then she set the phone down, reached for the wine glass on her nightstand, and took a long sip, like she needed a second to flip the switch. And just like that, she became composed. "Oh," she said, like I had just surprised her in the middle of brushing her teeth. "Didn't hear you come in." I said nothing, just stood there waiting, watching her carefully. She smiled, not warmly, not even apologetically. Just a tight, practiced smile. "I was just on the phone with Emma. We were talking about this book she recommended," she said, as if that explained the tone I heard. Some steamy romance thing. I was telling her about one of the scenes. She took another sip of wine, crossed her legs the other way. "You misunderstood everything again," she added with a soft sigh. "Babe, you really need to stop jumping to conclusions." And there it was, that phrase, the one that had become her shield lately. "You're jumping to conclusions. You're overreacting. You always do this." She said it like a lullaby, a way to rock me back into doubt. And for a long time it worked. I questioned my gut, convinced myself I was being irrational, that I was the problem. But not this time. This time was different, because I'd heard it, unfiltered, unstaged. And it wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. I stepped further into the room. She didn't flinch this time. She just leaned back against the pillows and looked at me like I was the one interrupting something important. I opened my mouth, but no words came. I didn't even know what to ask. How do you ask your wife if she just whispered something and asterisk mate to another man without sounding like a lunatic? So instead, I asked the only thing I could. Who was it? She blinked. Not surprised, annoyed. I told you, she said evenly. Emma, my friend. You've met her. Does Emma usually make you giggle like that? Her jaw tightened. A flicker of something crossed her face. Defensiveness, maybe, or guilt. It was a funny scene, Mark, she said sharply. Jesus, can you not turn everything into a crisis? She set the wine glass down and stood up, walking past me toward the kitchen. I followed. She opened the fridge. Took her time picking out a different bottle, like we were hosting guests and I was making a scene. Like I had imagined the whole thing. You always hear what you want to hear, she said, pouring another glass. Seriously, do you even trust me anymore? That question hit like a slap. Because no, I didn't. Not in that moment. Maybe not for a while. I heard your voice, I said quietly. I heard what you said. You weren't talking about a book. She shrugged. Then I guess you're the expert on every conversation I ever have. Another deflection. Another dodge. I stared at her as she leaned against the counter, sipping wine like she was bored with the whole interaction. And I realized I wasn't in a conversation. I was in a performance. One she'd rehearsed. One she'd probably used before. Maybe not with me. Maybe not like this. But the ease with which she dismissed me, that wasn't improvised. That was survival. You misunderstood everything again, she said one more time, her voice soft. Tired. As if she was the one being wronged. I nodded slowly. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe I had misunderstood the last few months entirely. The distance. The silence. The new passwords. The nights she worked late but didn't answer my calls. Maybe the thing I misunderstood was how far we'd already drifted, and how good she had gotten at hiding it. She stood in front of me now, her body language calm, but her eyes darting, waiting to see if I'd back down. I didn't. Instead, I turned and walked back down the hallway, back to the coat rack by the door. My keys still sat in the dish where I always left them, untouched, like she hadn't even noticed I was gone. And somehow that hurt more than anything she could have said. I picked them up, rolled them in my palm, then set them back down. I wasn't leaving. Not yet. Because if she was going to lie to me, she'd have to do better than that. The thing about betrayal is, it rarely shows up all at once. It leaks in through the cracks. At first, you don't even notice it, just a weird feeling here, a shrug-off moment there. Then suddenly, you're standing in the middle of your life, realizing nothing around you is where you left it. After that night, after I heard her voice on that call and she looked me dead in the eye and told me I was imagining things, I couldn't stop seeing it. Everything. All the signs I'd ignored. All the excuses I'd absorbed. I didn't go looking for them. They just started appearing. And once I let my guard down, they came flooding in like they had been waiting for me to finally admit the truth. Started with her phone. She used to leave it charging on the nightstand. Unlocked. No password. Nothing to hide. We had this unspoken agreement. Mutual trust, no secrets, no games. Somewhere along the way that changed. First it was the fingerprint lock. Then Face ID. Then the habit of flipping it over every time it buzzed. And I didn't even question it. Told myself it was about privacy. That everyone was doing it now. But she wasn't just protecting her phone. She was protecting what was inside it. One morning, I noticed she took it with her into the bathroom. We'd never been that kind of couple, the ones who hide behind locked doors. I tried to dismiss it. I really did. But a few days later, I heard the faint ding of a message through the bathroom fan. Then silence. Then the water turned on, like it was covering something. When she came out, I asked who texted her. She looked me in the eyes and said, "No one. No one." Like I hadn't just heard it myself. Like my ears were lying too. Then there was her laptop. She used to leave it open on the kitchen table. Half-finished reports, emails with coworkers, even little notes about groceries we needed. But over the last few weeks, it had vanished. Tucked away. Password protected. Off limits. I asked her one night if I could use it to check something for work. She froze, just for a split second, but it was there. That moment of hesitation that people have when they're deciding whether to lie. It's updating, she said. Super slow right now. That was a Thursday. The next morning, I walked into the living room before she was awake. The laptop was there, plugged in, fully charged. No update screen. Just a photo of us on the login page. Our anniversary in Maine, smiling by the lighthouse, before everything started to shift. I didn't try to guess her password. I didn't need to. She had already locked me out of more than just her computer. Other things started clicking after that. Things that hadn't seemed like much at the time, but now they hit different. The gym. A few times a week, she started going to the gym after work, which was fine. Healthy even. I encouraged it. But one night I noticed she came home in jeans and boots. Not gym clothes. No duffel bag. Not even a trace of sweat. When I asked how her workout was, she blinked twice and said, "Great. Treadmill and legs." Then she walked into the bathroom and closed the door. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her fitness app. We'd synced our accounts years ago when we were still doing weekend hikes and fake New Year's resolutions. I pulled it up on my phone. She never turned off the connection. Zero activity. For that entire day. No steps. No elevation. No logged workout. Her car, though? That told a different story. I wasn't tracking her like a jealous husband. But when you've shared a life with someone long enough, you start to notice patterns. And hers were breaking apart. One Saturday morning, I got up early to grab coffee. Her car wasn't in the driveway. She wasn't in the house either. When she came back, 45 minutes later, she said she'd gone to pick up pastries from a place downtown. But I'd already checked the kitchen. Nothing was there. Not even crumbs. Just a car that smelled faintly like cologne I didn't wear and gas levels that dropped faster than the distance would have required. I asked about it casually. She waved me off. Traffic, she said. Had the heater on. But it was 64 degrees that morning. And she hated using the heater unless it was snowing. I wasn't obsessed. I wasn't turning into some creepy tracker. But when you're being lied to, really actively lied to, your mind turns into a movie editor. You start rewinding conversations, zooming in, enhancing memories, and what used to be background noise suddenly becomes the soundtrack to your unraveling. Like the way she stopped sharing things about work. She used to talk about her projects all the time. Annoying clients, lazy coworkers, funny moments from lunch. But now, silence. She'd come home, exhausted, kiss me on the cheek, and say she just wanted to shower and decompress. I don't want to bring the stress home, she'd say. But it wasn't stress she was keeping out. It was someone else she was letting in. The calendar on our fridge didn't help either. It used to be full dinners, birthdays, errands. Now it was mostly blank, except for a few last-minute meetings that kept popping up. When I asked if she wanted to plan a weekend away like we used to, she said she was swamped. And yet, on those same weekends, her Instagram story had wine glasses, sunlit cafes, and captions like, "Finally breathing again." None of them included me. The makeup bag she kept in her purse got heavier too. Lipsticks I'd never seen. Lingerie receipts from stores I didn't know she shopped at. I didn't go digging, but sometimes the truth just falls out when you're looking for gum. At first, I thought maybe she was trying to feel good about herself. A glow-up, a confidence boost. But the lipstick was the wrong shade. The kind she used to say didn't suit her. And the lace? We hadn't touched each other in weeks. So who was it for? Not me. The worst part? I still wanted to believe there was a version of this where I was wrong. Where it was all just in my head. That maybe I was projecting. Overthinking. That the stress of work was making me paranoid. But deep down, I knew. I wasn't piecing together fiction. I was uncovering the story she had already written. And the more I looked, the more it came into focus. The late-night laughs in the kitchen, she said, were TikToks. The phone calls where she'd step outside and check on her mom. The unfamiliar cologne on her coat that she swore was from hugging a friend at work. The times she'd come home humming to herself. This little tune I hadn't heard since our honeymoon. A tune that used to be ours. It all meant something now. Something ugly. Something undeniable. And the most haunting part of it all? How normal she acted. How she kissed me goodnight. How she said, "I love you," like it was a line in a play she didn't care to rewrite. Like the world she was building outside of me wasn't real. Like I wasn't real. I stopped asking questions after that. Not because I didn't want answers, but because I already had them. They were written into every choice she made, every lie she told without flinching. So I waited, watched, listened, not out of hope, but out of preparation. Because it wasn't a matter of if something undeniable would happen. It was just a matter of when. The day it became real was a Sunday. Not dramatic, not stormy, just quiet. One of those lazy afternoons where the sun filters through the blinds in perfect little rectangles and everything feels still. The kind of day you'd think nothing could go wrong. And maybe that's why it hit harder. Because there was no warning, no build-up, no soundtrack, just a vibration on my phone and a photo that changed everything. She was supposed to be in Chicago, a last-minute business trip. She told me about it on Thursday, barely looking up from her phone. Team meeting, budget stuff. I'll be back Monday. I didn't argue. I didn't even ask questions. I just nodded and pretended I was still playing along. That was the unspoken deal we had now, her lying, and me pretending not to see it. She left Friday morning, suitcase in one hand, travel mug in the other. Said she'd text when she landed. She didn't. Said the schedule would be packed. I didn't ask for updates. We were doing this quiet, empty dance. Two people orbiting the memory of a relationship instead of actually being in one. But then came the photo. It was almost funny how casual it was. Not even meant for me. Just an accidental moment captured by someone else. I'd ordered flowers for my mom. She wasn't feeling well. I used one of those delivery services that sends you a photo of the drop-off as proof. When the notification came in, I opened it without thinking. Except it wasn't my mom's front door. It was a hotel lobby. And there she was, my wife, in Chicago, in someone else's arms. The courier must have mixed up the photos, sent me someone else's confirmation **T. But fate has a twisted sense of humor. And in that fluke, I got everything I didn't want and everything I needed. She wasn't just there. She was laughing, her head tilted back, eyes soft. One hand clutched a coffee cup. The other rested on a man's chest, lightly, comfortably, like she'd done it 100 times before. I zoomed in. It was him, the guy from work. The one she said was just a budget director, whatever that meant. The one whose name had come up one too many times in passing. Tom said this. Tom's leading that project. Tom and I had to stay late for the end-of-quarter numbers. I never thought anything of it. Not at first. But now I was looking at them together. Close, relaxed, unaware of the camera. Like they were in their own little world. There was no way to spin it. No, you misunderstood. No, you're overthinking. No, it's not what it looks like. Because this time it was exactly what it looked like. She wasn't just away for work. She was with him, at a hotel, smiling like the world outside of them didn't exist. And me? I was back home, folding laundry, trying to decide if I should cook or wait for takeout. I stared at that photo for a long time, long enough for the image to burn into my memory. Every detail, the tilt of her smile, the way she leaned into him, the way his hand rested low on her back like he had every right to be there. My hands were cold, not shaking, just cold. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't text her, didn't call the guy, didn't do any of the things I thought I might if I ever found myself in this situation. I just sat on the couch and looked at the proof, and felt everything inside me go still. People talk about heartbreak like it's a burst, like a dam breaking or a scream ripping out of your chest. But for me, it was quiet. It was the moment you stop asking questions. The moment the doubt is replaced with clarity. A clarity so sharp it cuts away the last traces of denial. That was the moment I stopped being her husband. At least in my mind. It was also the moment I stopped being confused. Because now, all the pieces I'd been trying to make sense of fit together perfectly. The phone secrecy, the emotional distance, the made-up gym trips, the meetings that ran late, the new lingerie, the lipstick, the perfume. All of it was part of another life. One she'd built alongside ours. A shadow version of our marriage, where she got to play the part of a professional wife by day and slip into something else entirely when no one was looking. Except someone was looking now. Me. And I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was done. But here's the strange part. I didn't feel anger. Not the kind you expect. Not the explosive, throw things at the wall kind. What I felt was nothing. A slow, cold settling. Like someone had turned the temperature down inside me. I got up, walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and sipped it while the image stared back at me from my phone. I didn't delete it. I saved it. ****ed it twice. Airdropped it to my laptop. I wasn't being petty. I was being methodical. This wasn't going to be a confrontation. It was going to be an exit strategy. She didn't know I knew. Not yet. And that was the one advantage I had left. So I played along. When she texted me that night, long day, just grabbing room service and crashing early red heart, I replied, hope you get some rest. Miss you. Miss you. What a joke. I stared at those words on the screen, and for a second, I didn't recognize the person who typed them. Not because I didn't mean them, I used to, but because that part of me had already started shutting down. Like I was watching my old self sending messages from a life that had already ended. I didn't ask what floor she was staying on. Didn't ask to FaceTime. Didn't even mention the courier photo. Because what was the point? She'd just lie again. Spin some story. Say it was a joke. That it was harmless. That it was taken out of context. But the photo didn't need context. It was truth. Undeniable. Cold. Final. I sat with it that whole night. Didn't sleep. Didn't eat. Just stared at the ceiling, listening to the buzz of the fridge and the occasional creak of the house settling. Like even the walls were adjusting to the shift. And I realized something. This wasn't just betrayal. It was abandonment. She left me emotionally long before she ever packed a suitcase. What I saw in that photo wasn't just cheating. It was choice. A choice she made to build int Macy somewhere else. To be fully present with another man while giving me crumbs back home. A kiss on the cheek. A love you without weight. Empty affection to keep the illusion alive. I thought about our wedding. The vows. The promises. The hope. And then I thought about her smile in that hotel lobby. Easy. Free. Unburdened. That was the real her now. That's where she wanted to be. Not here. Not with me. And for the first time, I let go of trying to fix it. I didn't want her back. I didn't want to scream or beg or even ask why. I just wanted out. But not sloppily. Not emotionally. I wasn't going to do the whole dramatic explosion thing. I'd seen how that played out in movies. Broken glass. Shouting matches. Regrets. No. This would be clean. Precise. Quiet. She had her story. She'd been living it for months. Now it was time for me to start mine. And it would begin with silence. Because the one thing she didn't expect, the one thing she couldn't rehearse for, was me no longer reacting. Not confronting. Not demanding. Not even crying. Just seeing her for who she really was. And deciding that was enough. The morning after the photo, I woke up different. Not rested. Not healed. Just focused. Like something inside me had clicked into place overnight. The ache was still there, but it wasn't chaos anymore. It was structure. Sharp edges. I knew what I had to do. Not out of revenge, but survival. She thought she had control because she had the secret. But now that I knew, that balance shifted. And she didn't even realize it. I spent that Sunday cleaning the kitchen, taking out the trash, folding laundry, routine things that made everything look normal. Because that's what I needed her to believe. That I was still blind. Still naive. Still the husband she could outsmart. In reality, I was building a case. I started with the simplest thing, her travel schedule. She'd been traveling more lately. Conferences, trainings, workshops. Always perfectly timed. Always just out of reach for me to tag along. But I remembered the hotel names she'd mentioned offhand. Little details she'd drop casually, not realizing I was listening. Chicago, Denver, Austin. I went through my email, searching for the old confirmation receipts we'd shared when we used the same booking account. The history was still there. So were the dates. Then I compared them to her official business trip reports, the ones she'd forwarded to me to explain why she'd miss a family dinner or a weekend away. And just like that, the overlaps started appearing. Same dates, same cities, same hotels. Always a corporate rate from the same company department she said barely interacted with hers. His department. Her supposed budget director. The man from the photo. She wasn't even careful about it. Didn't bother changing hotels or using different days. Because she didn't have to. I'd been too trusting, too willing to believe her stories. I trained myself not to look too closely. But now I looked at everything. Receipts. Credit card charges. Mileage logs. Every little fragment of her busy professional life that had once been invisible to me. I opened our shared cloud folder. Something we'd set up years ago for bills and tax documents. Buried inside, I found PDFs of her old trip reports. Some still had metadata, timestamps, geotags, file locations. And those details told the truth she never would. Her reports from Denver and Seattle both listed meetings in buildings miles apart, supposedly on the same morning. Not humanly possible. Her hotel in Chicago. Booked under her corporate email, but his name was on the reservation, too, as the second guest. I took **TS of everything. Each one labeled, timestamped, organized. I wasn't doing it out of spite. I was doing it because I needed proof. Cold, irrefutable proof. Because when someone's perfected the art of lying, words mean nothing. Only evidence does. That week, she came home like nothing had changed. She unpacked, washed her clothes, complained about the awful hotel coffee. She asked about my weekend, kissed me on the cheek, and smiled. And I smiled back. She had no idea she was living next to a man who'd already stopped being her husband, who was quietly documenting every thread of her deception, one by one. I wasn't dramatic about it. I didn't snoop through her phone, didn't hack her accounts, didn't need to. She left enough breadcrumbs in the open. People who think they're smarter than everyone else always do. One night I followed her car. Not far, just to confirm what I already suspected. She'd said she was meeting a client at a hotel lounge across town. I parked 2 blocks away, waited 15 minutes, and walked by casually. There she was, sitting at a corner table. Him beside her. No work laptop, no papers. Just wine glasses and that same laugh I used to think was mine. I didn't go in, didn't confront her. I just snapped a photo from the street, zoomed in enough to see their reflections in the glass. Evidence. The kind that doesn't require explanation. The kind that can't be talked away with "you misunderstood everything again." When I got home, I added it to the folder. Date, time, location. I labeled it like a report, because that's what it was now. A record of her choices. The next morning, she made coffee for both of us. Said she'd had a productive night. I nodded, thanked her, told her the coffee was good. It wasn't. Tasted burnt. Bitter. But I drank it anyway because pretending was part of the plan. If she noticed my calmness, she didn't say. Maybe she mistook it for forgiveness. Maybe she thought I'd stopped caring. Either way, she underestimated me. And that made everything easier. Over the next few weeks, I gathered more. Quietly, efficiently. Old email threads showing travel approvals with his name attached. Expense reports marked as joint client meetings. Duplicate Uber receipts from the same pickup points. Then there was her car. Saturday morning, 8:17 a.m. Parked 2 blocks away from his address. I took a photo through my windshield. I wasn't stalking her. I was collecting facts, the kind that couldn't be denied. Every time I found something new, I didn't feel satisfaction, just detachment, like watching a movie I'd already seen but couldn't turn off. The story played out the same way each time. Her lies, my discovery, her defense that never came because I never asked. I stopped confronting. I stopped needing her to explain. I just waited. Meanwhile, I made sure to keep up appearances. Dinner together. Weekend errands. Conversations about the news, the weather, her projects. We were the perfect couple again. On the surface, if anyone saw us at the grocery store, they'd never guess that I already had a hidden drive labeled with her name and the word truth. That drive wasn't just evidence. It was armor, because I knew the storm was coming, the day when her game would collapse, the day when the company she worked for, the image she cared about more than anything, would see what I'd seen. And when that moment arrived, I didn't want to be the angry husband shouting at the walls. I wanted to be prepared, calm, surgical. So I practiced. Every time she lied, I smiled. Every time she touched my arm and said, "You're quiet tonight," I looked at her and said, "Just tired." She thought she was safe in my silence. But my silence wasn't surrender, it was preparation. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation. It's patience. Patience until the truth speaks louder than you ever could. So I waited. I watched her play the part of the busy, faithful wife, sipping her wine in the evenings, sighing about how stressful work has been lately. And I made her coffee every morning, just like always. Only now I wasn't doing it out of love. I was doing it for closure, because I already knew the end of this story. And when it came, she wouldn't see it coming. The day I pulled the trigger, it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like procedure, like filing a report after a long investigation. A necessary formality to conclude something that had already died long ago. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was just done. I had enough evidence to make it airtight. Photos, travel overlaps, timestamps, expense reports, emails, and that one perfect image burned into my memory. Her standing in that hotel lobby, leaning into him like she belonged there. Like that was her real life, and I was just a placeholder she hadn't found the time to replace yet. So I sent the email. Not to her, not to him, to her company's compliance department. I kept it simple, professional, anonymous. Subject line, Code of Conduct Violation, Internal Personnel Relationship. I attached a folder, scrubbed of metadata, clean, precise. Inside it were travel receipts from both of them with overlapping dates. *TS of her emails referencing hotel bookings. Photos of them together off hours, clearly not at a business function. Nothing vulgar, nothing tabloid, just enough to raise questions no amount of spin could cover. I didn't write a long explanation. I let the documents speak. And they did. Loudly. I sent the message early on a Tuesday morning. By 9:03 a.m. The delivery receipt showed, opened. Then nothing. Radio silence. I went about my day like usual. Got coffee. Answered emails. Sat in a meeting where no one knew that, in another part of the city, someone's entire house of cards had just been nudged. She came home that night with a bottle of wine and takeout. Said her day had been exhausting. I nodded. Asked if she wanted to watch something. She said no. She had a few reports to finish up before tomorrow. She didn't know that by morning, her reports wouldn't matter. 2 days later, I saw the first crack. She came home early. That alone was strange. She never came home early. She thrived on being the last one in the office energy. But that afternoon, around 4:30, I heard the door open. I glanced up from my laptop and met her eyes. She was pale. And not in a cold, flu-like way. In a shaken way. She dropped her bag near the door like she'd forgotten how it worked. Walked into the kitchen. Poured a glass of wine with trembling hands. Her movements were tight, mechanical. "They're doing a compliance review," she said flatly. I stayed silent. She looked at me. Apparently someone sent something in, an anonymous tip, about me and Tom. I kept my face blank. "They're calling it an allegation." She forced a laugh that didn't land. "It's ridiculous. I mean, it's obviously just jealous coworkers. Some petty crap." I raised an eyebrow. "Jealous of what?" She blinked. "Of me, Mark. You know how it is. When you do well, people want to take you down." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, that's true sometimes." Her wine glass clinked against the counter as she set it down too hard. "They asked me about travel logs," she said. "Hotel dates. Why we kept showing up in the same places. I told them it was just bad timing. That we didn't plan it." Makes sense, I said. She squinted at me. Something in my tone must have tipped her off. Or maybe it was the lack of shock on my face. The lack of comfort. I wasn't rushing to defend her, to be outraged for her. I was just listening. She took another sip. They asked for emails too. My calendar said it was standard procedure. I watched her try to convince herself of that. Did they talk to him? I asked. Yeah, she said quickly. But Tom's got connections. He'll be fine. This whole thing is stupid anyway. Maybe, I said. She narrowed her eyes. You think I did something wrong? I met her gaze. Calm. Controlled. I think they probably wouldn't launch a full review without something solid. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You're awfully neutral about this. I shrugged. You always said I overreact. Thought I'd try something different. She didn't have a response for that. Over the next week, things began unraveling fast. Faster than I even expected. I heard her crying in the bathroom one night. The door wasn't locked. I didn't go in. She came out an hour later, eyes puffy, and said she was just stressed. Another night, she slammed her laptop shut the second I walked into the room. Said she was just going through some stuff for HR. The next morning, she didn't go to work at all. Said she was working remotely. But I could tell. She hadn't slept. She was unraveling. Trying to patch a sinking ship while pretending it wasn't already underwater. Then came the letter. Official envelope. Company logo. She was standing at the kitchen island when she opened it. I watched from across the room. Her hands shook, eyes scanning the lines faster than she could process them. I could see it happen in real time, the denial, the hope, the collapse. She set the letter down and stared at it like it had betrayed her. Then she looked at me. They're terminating me, she said, stunned, for violation of ethics policies and loss of internal trust. She said it like someone reading a foreign language. I didn't say anything. I just leaned against the counter and waited. Her voice cracked. This is crazy. This isn't even. It's not like IK* led someone. It's just. They're blowing this way out of proportion. I didn't correct her. Didn't tell her it wasn't them who blew it out of proportion. It was her. With every lie. Every choice. She looked at me. Like I was supposed to say something comforting. Something reassuring. I said nothing. She grabbed the letter, crumpled it slightly, then tossed it on the counter. This isn't fair, she whispered. They don't even know the whole story. I kept my arms crossed. What part of the story are they missing? She didn't answer, just turned away. She spent the rest of the night pacing the living room, muttering to herself. I heard pieces of her imagined defense. Phrases like, consenting adults, and no conflict of interest. And he's divorced. It's not like I was sneaking around. That one made me laugh. Quietly. Because sneaking was all she'd done for the past 6 months. That night, she barely slept. I know because I could hear the floorboards creak every time she paced past our bedroom door. When I got up in the morning, she was already on the couch, scrolling her phone with red-rimmed eyes. Maybe I can appeal it, she said. There's got to be a process. I didn't respond. Just grabbed my keys and left for work. She was still there when I came back. Still wearing the same clothes, eyes blank, wine glass full but untouched. I walked in, dropped my bag by the door, and started making dinner. She didn't move. Finally, she whispered, "Did you do it?" I turned. "Do what?" She didn't blink. "Send the email." I held her gaze. "Why would I do that?" She stared at me for a long time, then looked away. But she knew. The problem wasn't just the email. It was that she couldn't read me anymore, couldn't manipulate me, couldn't use my emotions against me, because I had none left to offer. And that terrified her more than losing her job. Because she could explain away the affair. But she couldn't explain away me going quiet. That silence? It spoke louder than anything I could have said. It told her, "You're not in control anymore." She lost the job within days. Loss of trust, they called it. Her voice broke reading the letter aloud. But I felt nothing. Colleagues stepped forward. Expenses flagged. Her careful world collapsed. and she kept blaming me, as if I pulled the rug. But I hadn't. I just stopped holding it down. She left on Monday to think. I didn't ask when she'd return. I moved out, changed passwords, signed the divorce papers without reading them. No yelling, no begging, just peace. I walked by the ocean that night. No phone, no lies, just me. Free. Finally.